Tune in every Monday morning at 10 for Get in the Know with host Marley B, providing the city of Highland Park news, information, and entertainment. Find out what's happening in Highland Park from the city's movers and shakers. Get in the Know with Marley B, Monday mornings at 10, right here on WHPR.
Good morning and welcome to your very favorite TV show, Get in the Know. I am your host, Marley Blackman. Marley B, that's me. I am also your press secretary for the city of Highland Park, giving you the information that you need to know, you want to know, and you deserve to know. And as usual, we have a wonderful show today. We have Abdul El-Sayed on our show today. He is running for Michigan governor, and he's going to come on and share with us his urban agenda, which is amazing. It's really well done. He's also going to be taking calls. So if you want to call us at 313-868-0342 to ask any questions that you may want to know. And if you like to follow him, he's going to give you that information as well. So we're going to have a great show, and we want you to stay tuned in, stay locked in. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Tune in every Monday morning at 10 for Get in the Know with host Marley B, providing the city of Highland Park news, information, and entertainment. Find out what's happening in Highland Park from the city's movers and shakers. Get in the Know with Marley B, Monday mornings at 10, right here on WHPR.
And welcome back to your very own TV show, Get in the Know. I am your host, Marley Blackman. Marley B, that's me. I am also your press secretary for the city of Highland Park, giving you all of the information that you need to know, you want to know, and you deserve to know. Today, I have the warm pleasure in welcoming Abdul El-Sayed. How are you? Good morning.
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Good. So, okay, it's Monday morning.
Monday morning.
And I just asked you, how was your weekend? And you said...
It was a busy weekend. A lot more time out on the road. We just had a relaunch of our campaign. So yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of our first full day on the campaign, and we celebrated it with a big launch. And what we did is we had an event at the Loft in Lansing, but it was simulcast across 55 different communities in the state. And so we had 1,000+ people watching all over the state of Michigan, talking about what it is that brings us to this work, and the idea that if we're willing across these communities to come together around a politics that speaks to solutions to the challenges that we face, we can have the kind of Michigan that that really dignifies real people instead of the corporations who have been buying and selling our politics for a long time.
When you say a relaunch of the campaign, why did it need to be relaunched?
Well, it's sort of an update, right? In the last year, we've done an incredible amount of work to organize. We've been able to visit over 100 different cities. We've knocked on over 100,000 doors.
Wow.
We've raised over $2 million, all in individual contributions, because we don't take that same corporate funny money that they pay to all the other politicians so that when they're in office, they get to call the shots. And so we're celebrating what we've been able to do, but also recognizing that it's 2018. This is election year. And so what we wanted to do is really focus on how we can empower folks across communities to come together, to have conversations with their loved ones. We often forget that politics is just about our whole conversation that we share about the kind of world we want to live in. And so that takes real people in communities all over the state having those conversations with folks in their community.
It's more than just a conversation. We have conversations all the time.
That's right.
And nothing is happening. We elect these politicians in office, and we're not able to hold them accountable once they get there. It's like the agenda changes. So what can you tell the people that will assure them that everything that you're doing now, your launch of your campaign, your relaunch of your campaign, everything that you're telling them that you're going to do, how can we know that once you win, and you're going to win.
Appreciate
Once
that.
you win, how can you stick to the script of giving us what you told us that you were going to give us?
Yeah, the thing I always ask voters is I want you to help me get elected, and then I want you to hold me accountable when I get there.
How can we do that?
Well, I think more than anything else, it's by watching how we're running the campaign. A lot of folks say a lot of great things, and they talk a good game about holding corporations accountable, etc. But we all know in the back rooms that they're taking money from those same corporations.
Yes.
For me, you can go and take a look at where we've gotten our money, and you can see that we have not touched any of that because I want to be accountable to folks. The other thing that I've told folks I want to do, and I hope that they will hold me accountable on this, is to continue to visit local communities, whether they be urban communities like Highland Park or rural communities in places like Kalkaska, to go and have conversations with folks to really get a sense of the kind of experiences that they have with state government. My previous role was as health commissioner in the city of Detroit.
Yes.
And in that role, I tried every Friday afternoon to go visit a home, not as the health commissioner, but just as a person who cares,
Yes.
to try and understand how it was that our policies were affecting people's lives. And so I think the other way that folks can know is just to look into somebody else's past work and to say, you know, when this person has made a claim, have they followed through with the claim? Are there facts on the ground that demonstrate the work that those people have done in the circumstances that they say they would have been in? And so I think it's about examining past work. It's about examining how and where people are getting their resources.
Yes.
And then making sure that you're a part of that conversation and you're engaging and asking the questions that you want to ask and see who gives you the best answers.
All right. So your urban agenda, again, it's amazing, but it's all words on a paper,
Yep.
right? So obviously you have to have, it's economics that pushes things and pushes agendas. Do you know how to find the money, and do you know how to get the money to Michigan?
Yeah. So what I'll tell you is when I was the health commissioner in Detroit, I walked into a department that had only $1 million in city funding.
Yes.
We were able to multiply city funding for public health 10 times,
Yeah.
and to bring in another several $1 millions in terms of competitive grants for projects that we kicked off. I know what it's like to set a vision and then get that paid for. Now in the state, right, we have revenues and we have costs, and a lot of the things that we're going to need to do are about reinvesting where we're investing money right now. This state right now, of the $56 billion that we take in, we spend $1 billion of that just giving subsidies to big corporations rather than solving the problems that exist on the ground. So a lot of this is not about more money, it's about money in different places. And we
Right.
all know that right now too much of that money goes to the people who have it, right, rather than the people who don't.
That's right.
And this is about articulating exactly what our plans are. Here's the thing. Everybody has their talking points. Everybody's got the same talking points,
Yes.
right? Nobody will sit in a community in the core of any city and say, yeah, I don't really actually care about your housing and I don't really care about
Yeah.
your water. And I don't. But we're articulating plans so that we're saying, look, we're going to put our money where our mouth is about telling you exactly what our plans are so that when we get into office, you can look at those plans and say, this is where you've succeeded and this is where you have yet more to go, because I do want to be held accountable. That's what democracy was supposed to be about. We elect our leaders and then we hold them accountable and we create the kind of society we want to live in.
We definitely want to hold you accountable.
Please do.
Definitely.
I hope you
Definitely.
will.
Yes, we will. So here's the thing. So you've done everything right, the American way. You come from good stock. You married into good stock. You've educated yourself, the best schools. You are giving back to the community. And somehow that's still not enough. Somehow you have your age working against you and you have your religion working against you. How do you feel about that?
Look, I tell you, I've had so much privilege. You know, my father was, he immigrated from Alexandria, Egypt back in the 70s. His dad was a vegetable salesman. His mom is the smartest person I have yet to this day to ever meet. And she never got to go to school. And to think in 2 generations that I got to get a great education and have the opportunity to serve in this way,
Yes.
that's what privilege looks like. I also know that the responsibility of privilege is to leverage that privilege to create it for folks who don't have it.
Got it.
And you know, however many barriers that I might have as a function of my name or my ethnicity or my faith, the thing that brings me to the table is more the set of challenges and barriers that people across the state have that don't get centered, right? And, you know, as a function of what I have had the privilege to do in my life, I get this opportunity to run, and, you know, I'm sort of in the limelight. And
Yes.
what I'd much rather do is take that same light and say, look, I want to tell you about a child that I got to serve when I was at the city. He's a 3-year-old boy, 4th child of a 21-year-old mom, met his father 4 times because his dad's in jail. When I think about my privilege, or even my daughter's privilege, you know, the obstacles that we might face pale in comparison to that boy. And so to me, it's not about the fact that this is going to be a bit more challenging simply because I'm young or simply because my name is what it is, but it's about the fact that there are people across the state that face a lot more challenges than I ever will.
Right.
And the responsibility to solving those challenges is what brings me to the table. And so it's about us collectively coming together and saying, what is the kind of Michigan that we want to live in that dignifies the life of a little boy like that builds him opportunities to breathe clean air, to drink water in his own home, his mom not to have to work 2 jobs to be able to just put a basic meal on the table for him, his grandmother to be able to get health care so she's not in and out of the hospital every couple of weeks. The schools that he goes to will be places that tell him that he is valuable and that he is the person that matters in that room. And those are the things that bring me to the table. So a lot will be made about my faith, a lot will be made about my age. And to me, the more we talk about that, the less we're talking about that boy.
So we're going to take a break, but this was the easy part. I want to talk to you about, because I'm just curious, what would you have done in the Flint situation as governor? I want to talk about chemtrails.
Okay.
All right. And I want to talk about our education, meaning I want your opinion on how it's orchestrated that if a child reaches 3rd grade, they kind of know how many jail cells to build in the African American community. All right, so we're going to get deep about that.
All
right, let's do it. All right, you guys stay tuned and stay locked in. I hope you're having as much fun as I am. Thank you for tuning in every Monday at 10 o'clock, Get in the Know. Again, I am your press secretary for the City of Highland Park, giving you the information that you need to know, you want to know. So stay tuned and stay locked in. We'll be right back with
Tune in every Monday morning at 10 for Get in the Know with host Marley B, providing the City of Highland Park news, information, and entertainment. Find out what's happening in Highland Park from the city's movers and shakers. Get in the Know with Marley B, Monday mornings at 10, right here on WHPR.
And welcome back to your very own TV show, Get in the Know. Again, I'm your host, Marley Blackman. Marley B, that's me. We have a wonderful guest joining us. Thank you so much for being here. I'm having so much fun with you.
Thanks for having me.
Getting a lot of information out. So before we took a break, we talked about some things that I wanted to cover. It's always the government is poisoning us through our food, through our air, through our water. And unfortunately, that's true. Unfortunately. So every morning, most mornings, you see a plane in the air that's releasing chemicals into our air, which is the chemtrail. What do you feel about that?
Well, I'll tell you, it's something that I remember as a kid always watching and seeing when an airplane had come. It's something that from a state level, very little that we do. That's more FAA and flight regulation. There's been a lot of conversation about whether or not these trails are hazardous. From what I understand, it's that what you're seeing is some release of runoff chemicals from airplanes. The probability is that it's just not enough to actually affect you, but it is something that over time and over the number of engines that fly through should be regulated. Here's the good news: a lot of that implies that there's wasted fuel from airplanes, and I think the industry. So if you look at the overall cost of what you pay for when you take a flight, the large portion of that is actually just the jet fuel because it's extremely expensive, and so there's a lot of incentive in the industry to reduce the amount of jet fuel that you let off, because it's just inefficient for the flight, and they could save a lot more money if they did it. But I do want to talk about some of the ways that more tangibly in Michigan, government has not done what it needed to. To protect us. Yes. When I was the health director here in the city, we had a situation where Marathon Petroleum, which is the single biggest polluter in the most polluted zip code in the state of Michigan,
Which has a very high cancer rate.
That's right. That's right. If you look at the surrounding areas, you have high cancer rates and rates that are consistent with the consistent breathing of materials that people should not be breathing. They wanted to raise their emissions again of sulfur dioxide, which is an asthma and cancer-causing chemical. And in that circumstance, the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, which is actually run by a former oil executive under Rick Snyder, wanted to allow that to happen. And we worked with the local community, and together we were able to organize and we were able to force them to invest $10 million of their own money to reduce their emissions when they had wanted to increase them. It was the first time anybody, state or local government, had stood up. And I remember when I had indicated that we were going to take this on, everybody said it's impossible, right? Marathon always wins. And it was the first time we were able to stand up and force them to think about their residents in a city where, including Highland Park and Detroit, the probability of our children being hospitalized for asthma is triple the state average. And so there's a lot of work that we've got to do to really regulate on some of these corporations that have done so much harm. You've also got the situation with Wolverine Worldwide, which was dumping sludge from their tanneries into local communities in Kent County.
Absolutely.
And now it's starting to come out that they've put this harmful chemical called PFAS in the water, and it's starting to come out, and we're starting to see cancer clusters around that, and that's just extremely dangerous and wrong-headed. And then we, of course, have Flint, and I don't think you can talk about the failure of government to protect people without talking about the Flint water crisis. And
so, before you go on, if you were governor,
what would I have done?
Yeah.
So let me tell you what I did do under similar circumstances, and then tell you what I would have done in Flint. Back in the summer of 2016, we had a lot of flooding in southeast Detroit. And in the context of that flooding, we found 2 cases of hepatitis A. That was well before this current outbreak.
I remember that, yes.
And in the context of those 2 cases, we had to make a decision about what we thought was causing it. And so the only known exposure of those individuals to hepatitis A was in cleaning their basements. Now, traditionally, you don't usually vaccinate people for hepatitis A in the setting of exposure to contaminants like that because it's so uncommon. But we knew that we had 2 people. The only known exposure was the possibility of getting some of that in their mouth while they were cleaning their basements. And we said it's possible that it's in the water. So I reached out to the state health department, and they told me that there's no statistical increase in the probability of hepatitis A after flooding, so there's nothing to do. And I said, no, I think we need to stand up on this, and we need to do something. And so I had to end around the state to go to the manufacturer of the vaccine that prevents hepatitis A to open up 2 clinics in the city to vaccinate anybody who had come in contact with floodwaters.
Wow.
And we did that within a weekend. We went up on TV and had a conversation with Detroiters about the possible damage here. And then we ran those vaccination clinics to make sure that every person who might have come in contact was vaccinated.
Good for you. That's
awesome. You know, this conversation I think is very different than what the state did and what the governor did in Flint.
Yeah.
And the thing that I think differentiates it is we were aggressive about trying to understand what the cause of a potential outcome was immediately as soon as we found it out. We did everything we needed to do to provide residents with the maximum possible preventive service in the setting of those exposures. And we were aggressive about communicating what was happening, and we put our own skin on the line. Right? That's not what happened in Flint. So had I been in the circumstance of Flint where I learned this, number one, let's be clear about what happened in Flint. Flint starts because you have a governor who runs a system past the will of the people of the state of Michigan, which drives forward this emergency management mechanism. So, you know, one of the things people don't appreciate is that Flint doesn't start just when the water source is changed. Flint starts when the governor uses backward tactics to overrule the will of the people to create emergency management mechanism, installs an emergency manager whose only responsibility it is to pay attention to costs and rather than operations, and then takes over the city of Flint and then makes this disastrous decision. And once he made this decision, not pay attention to any of the information coming out of Flint that might demonstrate that there was something wrong until it was made painfully clear through scientific studies that were incontrovertible. And so what I would have done from the very beginning is never have appointed a system of emergency management, never have appointed an emergency manager, worked with the city council to think about what a consent decree would have looked like so that we could empower folks to pay attention to operations to serve 100,000 people, right? And then once we learned that there was something that was potentially poisoning kids, I would have set up an office in Flint. I would have run point on it myself. I would be shuttling between Flint and DC to make sure that we were getting all of the funds we needed to address the issue. I personally would have gone into people's homes and held regular town halls to listen to what was going on, however challenging it would have been. And I'll tell you, when the hepatitis A situation happened, after we had done our part to address the issue, there was a town hall that was held in the community about 3 months later, and they invited a number of city officials to come. I was the only one who showed up.
Oh,
and
wow.
So I sat with the community there on the east side.
That happens a lot.
It does. And
Yeah.
and you know, was had a conversation with folks, and you
Yeah.
can imagine folks weren't very happy. And my part in this, right, was trying to deal with the hepatitis A on the back end.
Yeah.
I had nothing to do with the flooding. That being said, as an agent of the city of Detroit, I said, listen, whatever I can't answer for you, I will make sure that somebody does. And I will listen, and I really appreciate your frustration and your upsetness. I would feel the same way if I were you. And I want to tell you what I can tell you. I want to make sure that we're all operating from an understanding of the facts, but I'm not going to back down. I'm not going to run away. You are the people that I serve, and even if it wasn't my department that was responsible, it was the city for which I work. And that responsibility to stand up and take the heat and have the conversation and do what's right, that's the work of public service. And so I think there's a very big difference in trying to skirt an issue, trying to pretend like it's not a thing, trying to cover it up, where, you know, I think the responsibility is
Well, it always comes out.
It always comes
The
out.
light
and-
always shines.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you
It'll
can't
always come
hide.
out, but
Yeah.
even beyond that, there are people whose lives are affected.
Oh
And,
my gosh, yeah. That's a
you know,
problem once you become governor, that you're still going to have to, you're going to inherit.
Yeah, it is.
Unfortunately.
It is. But, you know, I think nobody knows better than a doctor about how to solve the challenge on the back end. In fact, I was called in by the state government twice to serve on commissions about public health. And the first time I served on a lead elimination board, and we did a lot of work to advise the governor's office about what to do next. And then the report that they published looked nothing like the one that we put together. And
I
at
deal
that
with that
point,
a
I said,
lot.
yeah. I said, at this point, you know, I'm not going to wait until you do this. I'm going to do it myself.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about you. We have a caller, Lord. I'm almost scared to take the calls because you never know what you're going to get. They're not filtered.
it'll be fun.
All right, so we will take the call, but we're going to take the call first, but I want to talk about you being a physician and how that plays a huge role with you transitioning to governor. Hi, caller, you're live on the air with Marley Blackman. Marley B, how can we help you?
And good morning.
Good morning.
You're right. You never know what the call is going to be. You're so right.
Well, hopefully this is a good one. Good morning, and thank you so much for calling in, and thank you so much for watching our show. How can we help you?
Okay. The conversation about the importance of physicians or persons who are responsible for health care and coming forward is a very, very important and critical consideration as many of the people in Wayne County determine who we might think might best represent us, especially those that are running for office. Several years ago, we approached several people about these water shutoffs and said at that time, we have to have representatives from the health department to make a statement about these water shutoffs that were approaching 60,000 separate addresses. Yeah. It was a very difficult climb to find those that were in charge of making a statement. And while we were climbing that mountain, we found this young man and worked very diligently to ask him and others, you have to say something about the health care consequences for masses and masses of people not having water. And we were not met with affirmative answers. And I'm not talking about, Miss Marley B., 1 or 2 visits. I'm talking about multiple visits. So the organization that I represent, at some point we gave up talking about this particular situation because we could not get a representative from the health department to say this is some sort of a health crisis that we're living in. And even today, I'm working tooth and nail, Miss Molly B., to find out why in the city of Detroit, children that used to be able to be tested for vision, those tests are no longer made available. And when I'm asking, I'm told there are budget constraints. So the water issue is very, very critical. And we could not get a City of Detroit Health Department person to declare an emergency of any sort. So that is why we go to these meetings, we make these telephone calls, and we try to do the best we can to remind people of the history. Once we went to these particular places and folks did not represent us.
Thank you so much, caller. We're going to have the doctor reply to that. And if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to always give us a call back.
This is Maureen Taylor on the line from Michigan Welfare Rights.
Are you in Detroit or are you Highland Park?
I live in Detroit.
Okay, wonderful. We're going to try to address that the best way we can. Thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. I really appreciate your question. I wanna hit the second point first. Actually, we do more vision screening than we did in the past. In fact, we built a program so that every child gets a free pair of glasses who needs a pair on the back end of the vision screening. So I don't know where you're looking, but the facts are that there are more vision screenings being done. We protected the funds that the state used to pay into doing this program and actually grew the funds because we stood up to the state when they wanted to cut them. I really appreciate the point about water. I hope that you'll take a look at our water platform, abdulformichigan.com/water. We're articulating a future forward where we are providing every single household with the basic amount that a family of 4 would need to be able to drink, to clean, to cook, and to bathe free of charge. And then we are increasing in tiered pricing thereafter for folks who want to use water for other luxury things like filling up a swimming pool or watering an acre of their lawn. This was an issue that I dealt with quite a bit, and Ms. Taylor noted that I didn't just meet with them once. I met with them every single time they wanted to meet with me because I knew this was an issue. Now, I disagree with the idea that somehow from a health department that had been shut down when the state was taking over Detroit finances, that declaring a state of emergency would have been effective. As we all know, this is Mike Duggan's policy. And so the health department was not in a position, I think, to stand on its own 2 feet, to be able to achieve all of the other outcomes that we had to achieve through declaring a state of emergency on this issue. Even as we had to fight on issues related to infant mortality, teen pregnancy, lead poisoning, vision deficits, asthma, and elderly isolation. And I know that water shutoffs are an incredible issue. It's an important reason for me, ultimately why I realized I needed to run. And then, the number of times that I brought it up as a health director in the city, got me kicked out of meetings most times. And I always sat with people like Ms. Taylor when they were working to study this issue and to use my epidemiologic expertise to help them make the study better, and working really hard to raise awareness on the issue. I think it's really important for folks to appreciate that leadership is always complex, and the complexity of it means that the question becomes, everybody has an issue that they're focused on. A leader has to be able to take all of those issues, grow the institution, and then solve them. And my hope is that as governor, we can address some of the bigger, more complex issues related to water in this state that go far further than what one department in one city could have said. But instead, change the way that we actually pay for water, whether it's in Highland Park or in Detroit, to make sure that people aren't paying ridiculous rates because we're moving the bureaucracy of municipalities and states to get it right. There's still, I'm not somebody whoever stops thinking about the past and what I could have done better. And I ask myself often what more I could have done on the issue. But I also know that that conversation to me drives a lot of what I hope to do on the issue as governor. And I've been extremely clear about this issue as a candidate. I've taken on the mayor several times on it as a candidate, and at risk politically, right? Because I think it's the right thing to do, and it's something that I hope to be able to move on when I'm governor. So I appreciate Ms. Taylor's call. I appreciate the work that they do, and I hope that we partner together to create a state where nobody has to go without water that they need to be able to drink, to clean, to cook, and to bathe.
So we have another caller. But I want to ask this. So we all know doctors. You're brilliant people, right? But when it comes to running a business, it goes a little shy, and this I know this for fact, right? How are you with attacking and handling the budget?
Yeah.
Are you good at that? Would you say that you'd be good at that?
So I took a department from 5 employees and 85 contractors to 220 overall, multiplied city funding for public health 10 times, and was able to identify and work with a team to build a group of people that could take on a vision for the city health department and then execute across plans. And so I think that kind of leadership, the ability to set a vision and then to focus on the details relevant to that vision, to be able to address multiple challenges in the city at the same time, while working within a very complex bureaucracy in the city of Detroit post-bankruptcy, I think demonstrates well the ability to take this on, to tackle a budget, to work with multiple agencies at the same time, and to achieve an end.
All right, so we know everything is linked together, from your education to your environment to your healthcare options. All of this stuff kind of comes together. So it seems like your platform should, in its perfect timing, should be healthcare, because that is a huge issue in Michigan. But how are you going to address the education issues that we have in Michigan? How do you address making sure the babies are educated before, and they're well equipped by the 3rd grade, so they're not judged on how many prisons should be built?
Yeah, look, this is our failure of our public schools, I think, is at core the biggest challenge that we face in Michigan right now. I inspected personally city schools when I was the health director, and walked into a 1st grade classroom where it was 11 a.m. on a February day like this. And you walk into the class and you feel the cold air hit you in the chest.
Yeah.
It's like you walked outside.
Wow.
You see 1st graders wearing coats at 11 a.m. and they're trying to color with their gloves on.
Wow.
You see mice dead in the corner.
Yeah.
You walk by the gym where they're supposed to be playing.
Mice dead in the corner.
Yeah.
Caller, I see you. Please hang on. We'll get right to you. Don't hang up.
You see the kids in the gym, or the gym that kids should be playing in, and you see the gym floor buckling because of the amount of mold growing underneath it.
Mice dead in the corner?
Yeah.
Wow.
Saw it with my own 2 eyes in a 1st grade class. And so the responsibility that we have in this state to get it right is critical. I think there's a couple things to get right first. Number one, we spend less per pupil per year in Michigan than any other state in the Midwest. So we have to start investing more.
Into the people.
Into education specifically, right? A recent report suggested that we should be spending about $10,000, $9,500 per pupil per year on education. We're nowhere near that. And we're even
charter
further.
Schools, you get about $7,200. Is it $7,200 or $6,900 per student?
So you get that, right? But then so much of that operational budget is siphoned off for things like advertisement, which you shouldn't be doing as a school, and then also siphoned off as profit. And so what we have right now is a system also that's been deeply inequitable. $718 per pupil per year is the gap between the richest school districts and the poorest school districts from the state, and then 6-to-1 gap in terms of property taxes that are paid into infrastructure. And so the critical issue here is that we've got to spend more. We've got to spend more equitably. But then even beyond that, we've got the situation with these for-profit charter schools where people are trying to make a buck off of the money that we are supposed to be investing in our children's brains, and that's just it's unacceptable. And so I want to end for-profit charter operations and move every charter school go at least to nonprofit. And then the way that we authorize them has to take into account what the needs of local communities are, rather than having these 14 different charter authorizers all over the state that have no attention paid to community schools in places like Detroit or Highland Park. And then it's a question of paying our teachers again. Young people don't go into education because it doesn't pay well. Our teachers in Michigan have taken a pay cut every year for the past
several
5.
Several
And that's inappropriate.
Yeah.
And so we've got to pay our teachers again. And we've got to be thinking about what we do to build brains early on. So you look at universal pre-K. That's something we need to do in this state, and we could pay for it with an early childhood tax credit. And then we need to be thinking about what happens after. We prepare every kid like they're going to go to college when we only know about 35% of our kids are. And so we need to empower kids both to go to college and to be able to go into the trades.
Absolutely.
And have them ready to go to take advantage of 1 or 2 year best of in class, best of on the job training that really can take 1 or 2 year programs and turn them into something that you're credentialed for a really high quality job on the back end. So we've got to fundamentally rethink education, and most of all, it's about a culture, right? We have to build the kind of culture where we tell every kid in the schools that you are the learner that matters here. Right? This is not about the bureaucracy. You're the most important person in this room, and we're going to empower you to believe in yourself and give you the tools and the skills to be able to go make something of yourself, because we've taken you and thought about you as a person, as an individual, and what you need.
We're talking about, caller, I'm going to get right to you. We're talking about America, the richest country, one of the richest countries. But we're running it like it's a third world country. We have problems with water and healthcare and food and education. It's ridiculous. Let's take this caller. Hi, caller. You're live on the air with Marley Blackman. Marley B, that's me. How are you this morning?
I'm doing fine.
Thank you so much for your patience. What's your question?
You're welcome. I'd like to say congratulations to your guest for making the cover of our magazine.
That is awesome.
The comment I'd like to have your guest is, I remember watching a documentary on the history of the Great Lakes when the French landed here, and he wrote back to France saying that he could see the bottom of the river. That water tasted sweet. As running for governor, I would like to know, will you take time out to learn the history of the big industrial companies that first laid the foundation to making some of the water bad? The research, I found out that the lumber mills and the paper mills from the late 1800s was one of the problems. And then once the automobile industry kicked in, that played a positive aspect also. So running for mayor, governor, I just want to hope that you do a little research on our river, on our lake, and add that into part of your campaign on the recreational, the clean water, and just enjoying nature and what was given to us in the state of Michigan to maintain and keep beautiful. And you too have a good day.
Thank you so much, caller, for your time, and thank you for always tuning in to Get in the Know. Have a wonderful morning.
Well, I really like the question, because I think one of the things we take for granted in Michigan is that we sit on 21% of the world's fresh water, and that is more fresh water than any other state in the country. 84% of North America's fresh water. And the thing about water is that fresh water is going to be increasingly the most important resource into the future. So if we don't care for our fresh water, then we're missing out. And more than that, I mean, if you want to really appreciate just how broken Michigan is politically, despite the fact that we sit on 84% of North America's fresh water, we can't seem to get clean water to people in Flint, or, as the previous caller mentioned, water to people in Detroit at all. And so solving that politics matters. I really appreciate the point on history, though, Because if you don't know your history, you won't do
You don't know
a
where
good
you're
job
going in the
navigating your
future.
future.
Absolutely.
And so I think that it is critical right now. One of the big issues that we have where industry meets the Great Lakes is that there is a oil pipeline sitting right in the Straits of Mackinac between Lake Michigan and Lake Huron that, if it were to burst, would poison something like 10% of the world's fresh water in a matter of days. And it's 15 years past when it was supposed to be shut down and decommissioned, but yet we let it run. It's run by a Canadian corporation called Enbridge. And that Line 5, I think, is one of the critical issues that we don't often pay attention to in the responsibility to protect our Great Lakes and our water. The other is that, the last caller's point about water shutoffs, we ask people in communities like Highland Park in Detroit to pay ridiculous rates for their water, and yet
We're
we
definitely going to talk about that.
allow Nestle to bottle water for cents on the gallon,
Yeah.
and they do it with impunity, and so they get to take that water, bottle it, and then sell it to us, while people in our own communities
ridiculous.
suffer without the water that
Yeah.
they need. And so it is a big responsibility that we have, I think, to protect our Great Lakes against both poisoning and misuse, and to think about how we leverage those Great Lakes to provide clean, fresh water for people who need them.
So I'd be remiss if I did not bring this up. So previous administration, Highland Park had its own water plant, right?
Yep.
No longer. So we are purchasing water from Great Lakes Water Authority.
Yep.
We are in a huge lawsuit right now, which looks like we're going to have to pay a lot of money back, $230 million. However, the state owes us about $300 million, which could totally wipe out the debt. We could probably take the additional money, put it into our water plant, and start operating our water again. Since the transition, there has been a ton of water main breaks. To get everything under control with our residents, the bills that they've gotten have been
Astronomical.
$20,000, $15,000, $5,000, and it's like most people that live here are on a fixed income.
Yep.
They're retired, they're seniors, or low income, no income. How do they pay that? So when you are living in a house with no water, probably no heat, then there's a fire that happens in the home because you're trying to heat the home. You're trying to do anything that you can to survive in the home. We just recently lost a little 12-year-old boy in a fire because he was trying to stay warm with a space heater. And his sister got out, but he didn't. And so it's like these kinds of stories happen not only in Highland Park, but everywhere in your the poverty areas of different communities. And it's crazy. It's insane. Now, these people who have gotten these water bills that were skyrocketed, it's not to a fault of their own.
No.
But who do they complain to? Who do they go to? So you write, that's why I talked about accountability, because when you write to, or you go to Lansing, which our mayor has done, and met with Governor Snyder and said, "Here, listen, this is what I have. It's in black and white," and you still get nothing.
Yep.
Highland Park is always overlooked for money, development, and you always wonder, what's the bigger picture here? Because you have this city who obviously needs demolition money, who obviously needs rebuilding money, who needs everything. So how is that? How are we being looked over?
Yep.
I don't live here, but I've become a fabric of the community. I literally love every individual. I'm very accessible. I'm very involved with each resident in this community, and I will do whatever I have to do to make sure that they have what they need. So I want to hold you accountable when you win for governor. What can Highland Park expect from you?
Well, look, I started with a policy proposal on urban communities because they do tend to get overlooked. The way that the state has operated for so long is that we've got a few at the top who have made their power by being able to divide people in urban communities and rural communities. And the way that the state has been gerrymandered, the way that campaign finance has allowed these big corporations to buy and sell politicians, has made it so that communities like this one get overlooked because that's not where the money is and the representation is so small, right? And so to me, it is really important for us to be able to unite people across these different communities, in rural communities and urban communities, to talk about what it means to be a working person or a retired person or somebody who is low income in Michigan, and what we do to solve the challenges that they face. To me, a lot of this starts with revenue sharing, what it is that the state does in terms of moving tax money that's supposed to be collected and given back to municipalities that has been fundamentally stripped to pay off state debts.
There's so much money that the state of Michigan owes us right now that we just can't collect on.
And then the other one has to do with infrastructure control and government control. And I think if we can get those issues right, and we can empower our local communities again through revenue sharing, we can empower them to be able to manage challenges that they face, and also to be able to own the growth that can occur there, and that we're able to make sure that we're sharing equitably infrastructure and empowering them to do the work that they can do. I think there's a lot of potential success there. Remember, I rebuilt the health department in Detroit after bankruptcy. I know exactly what the consequences of poor state level bullying of cities looks like.
That's a great word. Definitely, bullying is exactly what's happening.
And to me, it's about the people who live in these communities and the fact that they're being poorly served because we as a state have hobbled cities to do the things that they uniquely can do. And so it's about getting that right, and I hope that folks will take a look at our urban agenda at abdulformichigan.com/cities and take a look at exactly how we're putting pen to paper around the plans of how we solve that. One of the things that a lot of these politicians push is say it's impossible, and they rely on us not doing our homework to actually look at about whether or not it is. And so what we've shown is that actually it is possible. This is exactly how we would do it, and this is why I hope that people are willing to move beyond the old politics. Now, solving problems is going to take time, right? The problems are real deep, and my hope is that after 4 or 8 years of my leadership that we have addressed a lot of these problems, and we've built, more importantly, the framework such that our cities and our communities can grow in an organic way, right? A lot of folks are asking questions about why Amazon didn't come to Detroit, and I think that's just the wrong question. The right question is, how are we empowering kids like that little boy to be the people who build the Amazons of the future? And that, to me, is the question that means that we're bringing up and focusing on and centering communities like Highland Park in Detroit, and we're able to really have answer questions about what it means to invest in people and the places where they live, and to share so that cities can thrive again, and the people who live in cities are the engine of that thriving.
I think you hit on something really important. The old government. I mean, the old government, the old way of thinking it's no more. Yeah. We need to have change. We need to have fresh. Need to have new ideas, new energy. And I just think that it's great. So we're going to close out. I'm going to hold up your sign. So everyone that's watching, let's turn this around. No double-sided? What's up? All right, I'm going to do this. So we have double sides. Okay. All right. So Abdul for Michigan. Tell the people once more how they can find you, how they can follow you.
Yeah, our website is abdulformichigan.com. You can follow us on Facebook at Abdul El Sayed, ABDULEL-SAYED, Abdul like Paula or Kareem, and then follow us on Twitter. We're also on Instagram and Snapchat. So check it out. I hope you'll get involved. This is the kind of campaign that relies on good people coming together and being a part of it. The conversations that we share in our homes and our communities, and so there are a lot of ways to get involved. And if you're excited to do that, you can go and sign up on our website. We'll contact you. We'll give you everything you need to be able to put together a texting campaign or to go knock doors, whatever it is that you feel like you want to be a part of. So I really, really appreciate the opportunity to be on the show, Marley, and it means a lot to me that we can share a conversation about the future of communities like Highland Park in Detroit, and we got to get it right. I know that when I was serving in the city, one of the things that I realized is that there was very little I could do beyond what the mayor wanted to do, and that was one of the big reasons why water shutoffs were not something we could move on. And I realized that to be able to actually solve these problems, we have to be able to set the agenda right. And my hope is that this is a resetting of our agenda, taking and being honest with the challenges that we face, putting pen to paper on ideas to solve them, and then building the people power that allows us to actually build the movement to get it done. And then, like I said, help me get elected and then hold me accountable.
I think you're the right man for the job.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for coming on. All right, as always, another wonderful show. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I have. I want you to have a wonderful week, and mwah.